Yeah,
I'm a bad person to answer that question. I get to work at 7. I don't leave until 7 sometimes because one, we have this after school program, and I just I love my job. I love what I do. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing it. And I always tell people that if you stop loving what you do, then you need to find something else to do because that's when you start to ruin people. But I have students that graduated years ago that still email me or call me and ask me for a recommendation letter. Depending on the relationship that you build, I don't think it ever stops. Like when I go into certain stores, I'm like, hey, Miss Cambridge. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're grown. Like I remember you were 13, 14 years old. And so when I start to feel like I need like a mental health day, and I'm like, okay, let me stop. Let me pull back. Because, and Michelle tells me this all the time, that I'm going to burn out. I don't feel like I am because I love what I do so much and I'm very organized. And if they don't do things the way that I want it to be done, then I go crazy and I just end up doing it myself. But I think as long as I know my limits, then I will have to say, you know what, I'm going to turn my phone off. If it's an emergency, they can call 911 because I'm not going to leave my house and go rescue you.
Right.
If it's something that's in my power that I can help someone and it's not going to drain me, then I'm always available. But you do need to know when to cut certain things off and know when to say no. Because if you feel like a school can't function without you doing your one part for the day, then your mindset needs to be shifted. But if you're just genuinely there because you want to help, because you want these kids to succeed, you want them to have other opportunities, you want parents to know what's happening, then I don't think it's a problem. But you need to know your own limits. And if you don't know your limits, then that's when it becomes an issue.
And yeah, I think definitely, you know, that there are certain students. I had a student tell me the other day, "Oh, Miss Smith, you shady," because like one student had said something to me, and I'm like, whatever. But when other students are like, "Oh, you know who you're nice to and who you're not," not necessarily that. You have different relationships with different students, and because I'm not in a teacher role, I'm in the college counselor role, and because we're understaffed, I wear many different hats. I build certain relationships with certain students. There are some students who have my cell phone number. There are students who will text me and let me know about X, Y, and Z or whatever. But those are just those relationships that I have with those students. But I think that just in general, to your question, a general response is that our students need a myriad of things, right? So you're not just going in there to be the teacher. You wear a whole lot of, you're a social worker, you can be the counselor at that time. Exactly. Students come in my room all the time. They need food, right? Exactly. So you wind up being a whole bunch of different things to your students. And just like you said, like if that's not what you signed up for, then you probably shouldn't sign up. I leave at 4:00 because I'm at that point like, listen, it's time to go. And I kicked them out of my office. But, you know, when we get in there the next day at 8 o'clock, it's the same thing all over again. And, you know, they know that they can come to me for certain things.
And it's different for people that have families. Like some of my coworkers, they have children, they're married. And so they leave at 4:30, their coats are on, their bags are packed, and they're out the door. And I'm just getting settled to do my normal job for the day because I don't know what I did for the entire day. But I think depending on a person's lifestyle, then they create those boundaries as well. But if you don't have a problem with saying no, so even though I'm at work a lot, people know that when I say no, like I can't do this, then I can't do it. And so I think it's based on what you know that you can do and what you know that you can offer. That's really important because if you don't say no, they're going to expect you to do certain things all the time. And sometimes certain things may have to crash and burn just so that people can step up. Because you don't want to, if you work with a team, then everybody should be able to function and pick up the slack from somebody else. Or if I'm having a bad day, I know somebody else will do the advisory coverages and do things of that sort. But if you don't have a good team, then it becomes hard. And if you don't create your boundaries, you have to set your boundaries.
Yeah, and definitely about setting boundaries, because I think that the relationships that I created with students, that I create with students in higher ed is much different than the relationship I create with students in high school. I have students who clearly still email me for a letter of recommendation or let me know what they're doing now here and that sort of thing. But the relationship is just different. So depending on where you are and what you're doing at that point in time, where they are at in their academic engagement, the role that you play is different.
I'd say the flip side to that is at what point should you care, right? Because the reality is, for as many educators there are who have to struggle with, when do I set my limits and say this is too much, there are many educators who are like, it's 3:58 and I know that I'm walking out this door at 4 o'clock, so I don't want anyone to talk to me. Or I come in and I'm just doing this, and outside of the period I can't help you. I'm not interested in helping you. Oh, you don't get it? I'm sorry, you need to figure it out. I don't got no time to talk to your parent. I don't want to see your parent. You know, like, so there are just as many educators. The reality is that because of the state of education and education reform, there are pockets of people who join federally funded or privately funded education programs that give you a master's, who really are just doing it for the master's. And so then you have this weird dynamic of people who I would say are sometimes on a path of burning themselves out or hating their job because they care. Just you're supposed
Way
to
too
care,
much.
but at some point you have to be like, this is
Yeah, you
not
gotta
my
be able to
child.
turn. Exactly.
Yeah, who care a lot, and I appreciate that. But then you have the person who was just like, deep down inside, like,
I just want the summers off.
I just want the summers. I just want the summers off. I just want my free masters. Oh, but then I could go home and tell my family that I'm helping those underprivileged children. And that, until we are, and this just opens up a race issue, right? So until we are okay and in a place where we can have those conversations, which we are not, it will still always be an underlying issue where sometimes you have to question the intention of teachers or some people who come into the education field who don't look like this. No, I'm going to back up. Who look like the students too, who don't understand where the students are coming from, because that was not their frame of reference. That was not their educational experience. And so they're like, I feel good about myself because I'm doing this.
Yep.
But they don't understand the students, and they actually don't respect the students or the parents.
They're doing it for their own satisfaction, just
And-
so they can say, I'm helping.
Yes.
And I would also go further and say that you also have to question those who don't look like the students and come into this space and feel like they're doing it because, I don't know, if it makes them feel good, and now you feel like, you know, you're the great white hope, and, you know, and don't know the students and don't know their situation, and so it works both ways. I think you have just as many of those people come into these spaces also, who come in here to do the work and don't necessarily know what that work is. And, you know, it's a rude awakening for many of them. And they find out. There's definitely some who are dedicated, of course. But then there's some who find out, you know what, I'm really not down for the cause.
I will say that what you will probably find are more people who really have good intentions and want to make a change in education. But because they are not fully aware of their privilege or fully aware of their bias, those good intention actions, actually from the outside looking in, you're like, so that was so racist. That was so, so in my work, I visit schools, I watch teachers, and I lie to you not. Just in 2 weeks, I've been to classrooms where I'm like, so I know your heart is in this. And I know you really care about these students. But when you decided to do that thing and have that lesson or make that comment or frame your lesson this way, what did you think?
Right.
Who did you think that was servicing? Right? So I've seen that twice at 2 different schools where I'm like, oh my God, your heart is in this. I get it. But you are far removed from the plight of these students, that what you didn't realize was that action you took in this lesson did a disservice, because there are 1 or 2 students who are like, hold up, wait a minute.
Right.
What you was trying to do? Because it didn't fly over
didn't
their
fly
head.
over their head.
It didn't fly over
Exactly.
their heads.
Exactly.
And they're like, hold on. What did you do? What was this? What does this mean for me? And so for me, I struggle with that because I see so many of these teachers, white, black, whatever, who mean well, who want to make a difference, but they just are so like, they just don't realize.
They're so far removed from
they don't realize
our reality,
Yeah.
from our students' reality.